Good morning. I am testing. 1, 2, 3. Good morning. This is a quick tutorial on how to edit the photos that I've provided you for your portfolio. So as you can see when I'm scrolling through these pictures, some of them have very nice, pretty white backgrounds, and some of them have more of a pink or orange background. That is due to us using natural light, and when the clouds move and the light shifts throughout the day, we're getting a different kind of light. And so I'm going to show you how to clean that up. So I'm going to pick one that looks pretty white, or pretty not white is what I meant to say. So that's up here. I'm going to go ahead and use Eric's. I'm going to open this up in Photoshop. And you can see how orange that looks, okay? So the first thing I always recommend that you do to make sure that your screen looks like mine is go to Window, Workspace, Essentials, and I'm going to reset Essentials here. Yours might look just a little bit different than mine because I'm using Photoshop CS6 and you might be using CS7, so there might be some slight differences. You should be able to figure it out though. So when I'm editing photos, I always start by editing the original before I resize it down. And that way, I always save the highest possible version as an edited version so that if you ever need it at a higher resolution than what you're saving it for today, you can go back and you have it without having to re-edit it. So the first thing I'm going to do is File, Save As. And if I was Eric, I might name mine, I'm probably going to spell your name wrong, Melvin. Sorry if I'm spelling it wrong, I'm not going to look it up right now. I'm going to save it just like this on the desktop. And you might put a note to yourself that's Simon Says. It's kind of a long file name, but that works for now. Make sure it's at maximum quality. Okay. So the next thing that I like to do is I'm going to straighten this out just a little bit. So here's a little trick for straightening something out. You go over here. Excuse me, clearing my throat this morning. And we're going to find the ruler tool right here. In my version, it's underneath the eyedropper tool. So I click this, hold it down, and get my ruler tool. Now I can draw a line any way that I want. And however I draw the line, so I'm going to draw a line wherever I want my horizontal axis to be or my vertical axis to be. So if I want this to be my horizontal axis, I'm going to draw it like that. And what Photoshop does is it automatically processes that angle. And I can go into Image, Image Rotation, Arbitrary, and this is the angle that I've drawn. So I can go ahead and click OK, and it rotates it for me. Okay, so obviously I am going to have to do a little bit of cropping. I'm not necessarily saying this is the best way to crop. I just want to show you if you need to straighten yours out, that's what I would recommend that you do. So this is a fixed aspect ratio right now. I'm actually just going to put it to normal. And I'm going to crop it as large as I possibly can while getting rid of that edge white margin space. And then I can recrop it later. Again, you might want to edit first, do the rest of your editing first before doing this so that you have your whole image available. You can change the order if you want. Okay, so the very next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open my levels. And this little triangle up here signifies my whites, and this one signifies my blacks, and this one is my grays. And as you can see, there's image information at the black, so that means I have true blacks in my image, but there's nothing here at the white. So I can pull this down all the way until these little marks start showing up here. And see how that brightened everything up a little bit? And then I can mess with this a little bit. I think I want to brighten up my grays just a little bit too. Not too much though. Then I'm going to click OK. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my color balance. Oftentimes I add red, but this definitely doesn't need red, so let's play with this. And I never like to change it more than about 10, but this can definitely handle -10. And you can do that just by moving your arrow up and down, or you can click and drag it. I usually just do my arrow up and down. So we're going to adjust that one. We definitely don't want magenta, because see, that's the direction that we don't want. And I don't know that we want much green either. So I'm just going to adjust that 2 or 3, and then I'm going to go to my blue, and let's see what happens if I add a lot of blue. It gets too purpley looking. If I add a lot of yellow, that's not the direction we want to go. So what we're really looking at here is you want to look at a part that's supposed to be white, and you're focusing on trying to make that as white as possible. So let's add a little bit of blue, okay? And I'm going to open my levels back up again. And here's another trick you can use that I don't like to rely on too much because it can make really drastic changes. But I can select this this eyedropper here over here that signifies white. Sample an image to set the white point. So that means I can pick anything on any point on here, whatever is supposed to be the brightest white in this image. If I click on that, it'll make everything else white. See how that worked? That was a nice little cheat, and it worked really well, so I'm going to accept that change. And that's a nice little quick tutorial for you. We can go in here and see that my image size, let's change this ratio around. So I want my image resolution to be 72, but I don't want to stretch my image. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to uncheck resample image. And see how this links those 3 together? So what happens is when I bump my resolution up, it's actually going to knock these sizes down, because obviously I don't need my image to be 66 inches wide. Okay, so I'm going to bump this up to 300, and then my image is still 15, almost 16 inches wide, which is plenty large for me to use. Okay, so then depending on your personal preference, you could come in here and mess with your exposure a bit, make it even brighter, go up. You can play with these things and see what they do. I usually go pretty bright. This gamma correction makes everything a little bit lighter, and then I would go in and adjust my contrast. I just wanted to show you a few different tricks that I use depending on what I'm editing. When I'm doing portfolio pieces, you really don't want to be too heavy-handed with how you're editing. Like that is not good because we start to lose these blacks right in here. When you're doing this, if you don't see any changes, make sure that this preview box is checked so you can kind of see what you're doing, what you're changing. I think I might have been a little heavy-handed with those last 2 changes, so I'm going to pull up my history, and I can go back and see what it looked like back here. I think that maybe it was a little bit better back here before I messed with that exposure, okay? So there is my quick and dirty tutorial on this. The next thing that you could do is I would save it again, and then you can copy the whole thing by select all, Command C, copy that, and then I can pull it into my image template for my process book if I'm putting in my process book to resize it to the size that I need. In your process book, if you want to collage multiple images, like I said in class, you're welcome to do that. That's it. Just remember that your process books are due at noon on Sunday. That's tomorrow, Sunday the 15th. I'll be doing grading then.